Welcome to Vitality Made Simple, the podcast that takes the stress out of being healthy. I'm your host, Dr. Debbie Osment, and I sincerely thank you for joining me. Now, lots of people are worried sick about getting sick because there is so much yuckiness going around. And this illness impacts relationships. So in today's podcast, I want to empower you with research on quercetin. Quercetin is a friendly nutrient that has been scientifically proven to enhance immunity. And you can eat your way into it if you don't want to take more pills. I mean, woohoo, I think that is great news. You know, it feels so good to feel good. So this is information that you're going to want. I'm really excited about today's topic. We're talking about a naturally occurring compound that has minimal side effects, and it's known to be a prolific immune builder. Now, that statement is backed by lots of excellent research. You can get quercetin from many foods. In other words, you can eat your way into vitality, or you may benefit from a nutritional supplement depending on your lifestyle. You know, pills, whether they're supplements or prescriptions, should never be your first strategy for vitality. Now, they don't really create health. You know, and as their name implies, they're just supplements. They're added, something added to an already good vitality plan. Now, quercetin has been shown to be beneficial for bolstering our immune systems in many ways. The good news is that it builds immunity without known side effects, and that's never been more important than it is now. So let's talk about this amazing and abundant antioxidant called quercetin. Now, quercetin has been called quercetin since 1847, and it's named after the white oak tree Quercus. Now, I just think our ancestors were so brave to explore these medicinal compounds. I mean, who was the first person to take a bite of bark? Quercetin is a plant flavonoid compound. In other words, it's a pigment, and it's concentrated in fruits, in vegetables, in teas, in wine. And if you had asked me 3 years ago about my knowledge or thoughts on how important quercetin was, I didn't know how important it was. If I had spouted off my top 5 nutrients, I would have that were important for vitality, or important for cancer or immune support, I would have not had quercetin on my list. I would have had vitamin D on my list, vitamin C, fish oil, magnesium, CoQ10, but quercetin would have not made it to my top 5 radar. But that all changed with the emergence of COVID-19 as we all started looking for ways to protect ourselves from this mysterious virus. Now, we've known for a long time that zinc was an effective viral protector. And then quercetin became noteworthy as an important zinc ionophore. Now, a zinc ionophore is a compound that helps zinc actually get into the cell, get into where it can be used. So today we're going to answer some questions about quercetin. We're going to talk about how it actually helps immunity. What does it do for our immune defense? We're going to talk about which foods are good sources, and we're going to talk about an appropriate supplement dosage if that's appropriate for you. So, number 1, how does quercetin help boost our natural immune defense? It is a mighty warrior when it comes to combating free radical damage. You hear a lot about free radicals. Now, what exactly are free radicals? Now, that's a very common term in health-related topics, and I think it's important to really unravel it a little bit. Now, free radical is basically an unstable molecule, and free radicals are unavoidable. I mean, just living and breathing and moving and having fun and relating to your family and your life, it all creates free radical damage. Now, free radicals are a part of our metabolism. Our bodies are designed, though, to deal with free radicals at the metabolic level. The problem is that we can easily get overwhelmed I sort of think free radicals are like ants at a picnic. When you go on a picnic out to a park or out in the country, you're going to accept that there's going to be some ants to deal with. That's just part of having a picnic out in nature. But you don't want to set up your picnic blanket in the middle of an ant pile. You don't want to invite ants to dominate your picnic fun. So free radicals are very similar. They're unavoidable. And unfortunately, the damage of free radicals is cumulative. These unstable molecules can damage DNA. They can increase the risk of all kinds of chronic diseases, including cancer. All the things we don't want, all the things that inhibit our vitality can be impacted by free radicals. Now, our bodies, as I said earlier, naturally create free radicals as byproducts of metabolism, and that's unavoidable. Like a few ants at the picnic. But you can also get free radicals from lifestyle, what's happening in your lifestyle. Things like excessive stress, sleep disruption, eating too much processed food, eating too much sugar, exposure to toxic substances like pesticides or herbicides, all the things I talk about on Vitality Made Simple. A whole array of chemicals, including perfumes, can increase your free radical limit. So it's sort of the dose that makes the poison, because our bodies are designed to deal with them, but we get overwhelmed. So therefore, we need antioxidants in our lives, because antioxidants are basically the antidote for free radicals. Now, when I talk about anything that's a vitality strategy, I'm always going to talk about lifestyle first, and foods first, and then supplements. But both of the foods that contain quercetin and quercetin supplements will capture and neutralize these free radicals to help tame the level. The more free radicals, this makes perfect sense, the more free radicals you have, the more antioxidants you will need. You will become very vulnerable to many illnesses when the free radicals are building up, when your rain barrel gets full, when the free radicals are outnumbering the antioxidants. It sort of reminds me of Lucy and Ethel in the Candy Factory. If you're old enough, or if you want to look on YouTube, just look up Lucy and Ethel in the Candy Factory, and there's this conveyor belt that's moving really slowly, and they can handle it. But when it speeds up, they get in big problems. It's hilarious. But free radicals are not hilarious, but it's a very similar process. They can build up, they cause cell membrane damage, they can cause gene mutations, and all of these problems induce various diseases that you don't want. Things like heart disease, liver damage, diabetes, cancer, and this is one of the things that helps make you more vulnerable to these problems. It's never just one thing that causes a disease. And loss of vitality has a lot of different facets. Conversely, it's not just one thing that solves the problem. We have to support our immune systems from many different areas, and quercetin directly benefits several of these areas. Now, in addition to being an antioxidant, quercetin has antimicrobial properties. Now, many of the studies that I read talked about this, how this amazing antioxidant destroys the cell wall of bad bacteria, and it actually disrupts protein synthesis of bacteria, which kills the bacteria. Now, there was an impressive list of specific bacteria that quercetin had been tested against. Those were things like the dangerous strains of E. coli, the dangerous strains of Staphylococcus aureus. And it's been, I thought what was so amazing to me, it's been shown to be effective against biofilms. Now, this is extremely significant. Biofilms are everywhere. Biofilms are basically a thick layer of slime that is filled with microorganisms, bacteria and fungi. And when they're in this slimy biofilm, they are protecting each other. Now, they're communities of bacteria and fungi, and they secrete a protective matrix, sort of, that helps the biofilm attach very firmly to whatever surface it's on. Now, the surface can be a living or a non-living thing. And because they form this layer of slime, they can protect each other from external threats. So you know about biofilms. You know biofilms can form in water lines, they can form in breast implants, they can form on contact lenses, they form in toilet bowls, they form on teeth, under the gums, and they basically disrupt wherever they are. They can severely disrupt wound healing. And so when these biofilms mature, they actually can disperse and attach to other areas, forming new biofilm colonies. So they're big problems in our world, and they cause big problems for vitality in a myriad of ways. An interesting study that I read looked at biofilm formation in urinary catheters. And they found that quercetin supplementation actually protected the catheter-related Staphylococcus aureus infections. I mean, think about that. That is really something that could help so many people. So hopefully this information will help one person, maybe more. I would suspect that if you were in the situation of having a catheter, you would need to know this information and be taking the quercetin for yourself, eating lots of quercetin-rich foods, as well as potentially taking a supplement. Of course, in the study, they tested the supplement. It's a significant attribute, I believe, that quercetin inhibits biofilm formation because biofilms seriously impact vitality. And we all want more vitality because we want richer relationships. We can't get away from knowing that the better we feel, the richer relationships we're going to have. And I also found that many cancers have been shown to be positively impacted by quercetin. So I'm going to do an entire podcast on those studies because they are fascinating and they're very inspiring because of, I started digging and I started a file with a treasure of information about how quercetin fights cancer. So we'll talk about that later. So let's talk about food sources and supplement doses. As a general rule, all naturally colorful foods are great for immunity, and many are loaded with quercetin. Quercetin is a natural pigment present in many fruits and vegetables and some grains. So, as a person who enjoys color, I'm just so thankful for how God created our world with so many beautiful foods. Now, fortunately, quercetin is one of the most abundant antioxidants. It's even abundant in the average diet. What in the heck does the average diet mean? When you read that in research, you know that you can get it from many, many fruits and vegetables. But that average diet lingo always bothers me. The average person doesn't consume many fresh fruits and vegetables. It's really like a French fry is the primary vegetable every week. That's not you all listening, but that's probably average in a typical week. When they looked at average in terms of quercetin consumption, it was only 10 to 100 milligrams of quercetin a day through various food sources. Now that's a huge gap, 10 to 100 milligrams. That gap may be because it's widely, found in plant foods, and people don't eat a lot of plant foods. But for those of us who want more vitality, we want to enjoy these delicious plant foods. So you can find quercetin in things like apples, berries, grapes, onions, teas, especially green tea, tomatoes, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower and mustard greens and kale and chard. All those green leafies are really good. You can find it in cooked asparagus, and actually it's higher in cooked asparagus than raw. Lots of nuts and seeds contain quercetin, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, they found it originally in the bark of that tree. It's also abundant in several medicinal plants, things like ginkgo biloba and elderberry. You heard a lot about elderberry when the COVID pandemic first started. Now, some foods contain more or less quercetin depending on how they are grown. This is not across the board, but for example, Organic tomatoes contain almost twice the quercetin as conventionally grown tomatoes. So soil content matters. It's always inside out, and I think that is so great. Research is very clear about how quercetin can decrease chronic inflammation. So when it decreases chronic inflammation, that lowers blood pressure, that can improve blood sugar control. We know how all these areas impact vitality. People take it to aid athletic performance, to combat allergies, and it's been found, one of the recent studies I found, that it's been shown in animal models and test tube models, so not in people yet, that it blocks histamine. Super interesting. Now, of course, you want to eat your way into it. You want to eat more than that 10 milligrams a day, but you can find it in a supplement powder if you want to. And people take it for many reasons. I now take quercetin, and I'm taking 1,000 milligrams a day because of the research I did for this podcast. It's been shown to slow aging. Now, when you say slow aging, that's really just related to how it impacts heart disease, how it impacts blood sugar, and how it impacts inflammation. Interestingly, coffee contains quercetin, and I think that's great news. I love that first morning coffee. We put some butter in it. It's so good, bottoms up for the coffee. Research has found that quercetin in coffee is actually neuroprotective. It helps protect your brain. Now, previously, there's a lot of research about how caffeine was responsible for that, in coffee was responsible for that brain protection. But now researchers are really thinking it's quercetin. So, anything that lowers chronic inflammation, anything that decreases neuroinflammation and curbs blood sugar will slow aging. So, on a side note, I want to mention that all inflammation is not bad. We talk about inflammation, and really I always mean chronic inflammation, because without acute inflammation, our bodies would never heal. We all know about acute inflammation. That's the healing type of inflammation. That's inflammation that generates pain, heat, swelling, redness. You sprain your big toe and it hurts, it feels warm, it swells up, it's red, it gets well, it gets back to healthy. That is necessary for our bodies to heal. It's necessary to fight infection. It's the chronic inflammation that's the problem. It's when you don't really have those big symptoms, but it's there and it's just slowly doing damage. I like to think of acute inflammation as a campfire. In fact, I'm drinking out of my Boy Scout mug here. Set around a lot of campfires. A campfire is still fire, but it's contained and it has a specific purpose. It's great for relationships. You can cook food on it. It provides warmth. It's beautiful. There's just so many reasons to have a campfire. But you have a campfire, you put it out, and you're done. Very different than a wildfire. Very, totally the same chemical component, it's fire. But in a wildfire, it can be so insidious, it can destroy things. You can think it's out and it's not out, and then it starts back up again. That's chronic inflammation. And that's what we're talking about in terms of how quercetin has been shown to be effective. Now, one of the studies I read was with 50 women who were suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. Now, they took just 500 milligrams of quercetin a day, and they found that most experienced less early morning stiffness and pain. Now, that's just one tablet, generally 500 milligrams. And the study did not talk at all about, what they were eating. We don't know if they were the 10 milligram a day people maybe eating a French fry, or if they were on the high end. But this is super, super interesting research. And so I'll be talking more about some of these things in a couple of months. Now, doses range from 500 to 1,000 milligrams a day. On its own, quercetin as a supplement is poorly absorbed. It has low bioavailability. So if you're going to take a supplement, you want to take it with food. A lot of the supplements contain bromelain, which is a digestive enzyme that comes from pineapple, and that's often in there to help it be more bioavailable. You might also see vitamin C included in quercetin to help increase its absorption. But that's why, if possible, get it from food. There's no side effects from food. Real food is what our bodies are designed for, and real food contains so much more than we know about yet, more than we can figure out in a lab, and it's always safe to consume food. There's no side effects. By eating fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, you're going to tickle your taste buds, and you're also going to get lots of other things. You're going to get lots of fiber, which is going to make you poop better, and that's great for your relationships. And I wonder if I could have a podcast that's called Pooping for Better Relationships. I don't know. I'll think about that. I wonder if anybody would listen to that or share it. But of course, if you take the supplement, like any supplement, it can potentially interact with medication. So if you're taking medications, talk to a knowledgeable healthcare provider in this area to know if you could be having any problems that would decrease the benefits. But overall, quercetin has been shown to be safe and a very good thing to know about if you want to keep your immune system working in tip-top shape. It's just so easy to forget that that there are so many immune-enhancing and anti-aging nutrients found in delicious food. I think we need to reframe why we want to find more good recipes. Too many people view eating real food as a chore. They view it like they're missing out on something. Rather than, this is, my anti-aging strategy. This is my strategy to slow aging. In fact, I would say it's almost normal in our society to eat processed food over real food, and when you think about whole food, think you're missing out. That may be normal, but we don't want to be normal. We want to resist normal. Normal is defined as the usual or the regular pattern in the world at the time. It's whatever everybody's doing. It's what's familiar and regular. It's usually not good. Consider what normal is in our world. It is dehydrated, irritated, constipated, frustrated, overscheduled, overstimulated, undernourished, underrested, inflamed, and totally stressed out. Feeling great is not normal. So you want to have a strategy. You want to have a plan to have more vitality. And having this vitality doesn't need to be confusing, expensive, or no fun. But it does require some discernment, and it requires intentionality. But bottom line, it's worth it. So I hope you'll go out and enjoy some foods that have lots of quercetin. You might consider buying a supplement. If you're inclined to help support the podcast, you can find an excellent source of quercetin that has been third-party tested at a reasonable price by going to my website. That's drdebbieosment.com. There you'll find a shop tab, and then you can go to the Wholescripts tab. It can be delivered right to your door. So thanks for joining me, but always think food first. I really want you to enjoy the food first. This has been episode 82 of Vitality Made Simple. Together, let's take the stress out of being healthy. And you don't have to be from Oklahoma to know that it feels so good to feel good. Now, we are now in, let's see, I've got it written down over here, 996 cities and 70 countries. And that's all thanks to you. So please keep sharing. Please keep subscribing. Thank you so much for listening. Blessings until next time.